Yo, what's the deal, y'all? Free agency is right around the corner, and I want to talk about it a little bit. Now, I know it's a little bit early to talk about this with team and player options not yet set and the NBA Finals just now becoming established, but I want to go over some top free agents, a few sleepers, and teams with the majority of cap space, and my way too early predictions for free agents. So let's talk about it, man. Let's see what's up. So on the free agent side, I have Kawhi Leonard, Chris Paul, Mike Conley, DeMar DeRozan, and Kyle Lowry as the top free agents of this class. And Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond as sleepers that can potentially go under the radar. A lot of people may look at this list and say, yeah, this might have been a good one 5 years ago, but today, who cares? But for me, with the current landscape of the league and how close so many teams are to each other talent-wise, I believe many of these players could swing the balance of power in the league with whatever decisions they make. On the teams with projected cap space side, I have the Dallas Mavericks with $35 million in space, Memphis with $22 million, New York with $51 million, Charlotte with $20 million, OKC with $37 million, San Antonio with $49 million, and Toronto with $23 million. Now, I like to talk about these moves teams can make, but I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on potential moves like trades to clear space other teams could make or signing trades teams not listed could produce to make the necessary room to sign players in free agency. Instead, I like to talk about which teams should want to sign these players and which teams these players should want to sign with. So first up is, originally, I didn't want to talk about players who had opt-out clauses, especially the ones that didn't expressly say they were opting out, but let's face it, Kawhi Leonard of the LA Clippers is a special case whose silence and non-committal mindset on matters like these speak volumes. It's been widely reported that Kawhi won't be picking up his $36 million player option to return. A lot of people are thinking he intends to play the field and maybe even leave the Clippers because of their lack of draft capital, trade capital, and a disastrous end to the 2020 run and somewhat disappointing end to this postseason run with his injury and the team's failure to reach the finals. The big move basketball media is putting out there is the Dallas Mavericks for him. And at first glance, Luka Doncic and Kawhi Leonard with Kristaps Porzingis in the paint sounds like an immediate championship contender, even more so than the Clippers. To me though, when I really think about it, the fit with Kawhi and Luka isn't as solid as you might think. Luka is a super ball-dominant superstar, already accustomed to making every decision on the court. I'm not sure adding another superstar accustomed to the ball would mesh well together, especially considering their personality differences. Personally, I think Kawhi stays in LA. He's already changed teams twice, and the move again without winning in LA will kill his perception in the eyes of many fans and suggest he's running from the situation that he created himself. I would also be encouraged by the Clippers' payoff run this year if I were him. The fact they pushed the Phoenix Suns to 6 games in the Western Conference Finals behind Paul George's MVP G13 performances suggests they may be finals bound if not for Leonard's injury. I predict Kawhi re-signs in LA for a 2 to 3 year contract, no trade clause max deal with the final year avoidable via player option. The point guard. I might be a little biased here. Chris Paul is my second favorite player ever to watch, with Shaq being number one. Since coming to Phoenix, Chris has shown yet again why he is the ultimate leader and one of the 5 greatest point guards to pick up a basketball. Like Kawhi, Chris has a player option worth just over $44 million and is reportedly going to opt out of it for another long-term deal. The difference is many people called it the worst contract in the NBA, but with Chris in the finals, I say it's worked out pretty well. Speculation has it that the New York Knicks are going to push hard for him in their never-ending quest for superstar free agents. Of all the other teams on my list, the Knicks and Mavericks are the only teams I can see being a true threat to lure Paul away from re-signing with the Suns. The Knicks to me are the least likely of the 3 teams to get Chris. With Phoenix being able to offer him the most money, the decision becomes which team offers me the best roster to win. Moving to New York from Phoenix would be at best a lateral move and more than likely would be a worse situation with less talented roster, not accustomed to a somewhat domineering personality. Not to mention the competition he faced in Brooklyn and Milwaukee. Dallas is certainly a better situation than New York and maybe even Phoenix with Luka Doncic being a much better player at this stage than Devin Booker, and the roster for the 2 teams being relatively equal. The issue with Dallas to me, once again, is fit. Luka handles the ball all the time and for all intents and purposes is already the team point guard. Moving Luka off ball may hamper his effectiveness with his somewhat subpar shooting ability and lackadaisical defense. We've already seen Chris with another ball-dominant guard in James Harden, and we saw the results of that. I don't think pairing him with Luka would maximize either player's talents. Finally, I have the Phoenix Suns. This is the most likely place for Chris Paul to me, and it should be where he ends his career unless the Lakers somehow become available. This team seems like it's built for him. They have an ultra-talented young scorer in Devin Booker, athletic 3-and-D wingmen like Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, stretch power forwards, and a star-in-the-making big man named DeAndre Ayton. They respect him, and he finally has a team that accepts his leadership wholeheartedly, and he's paid them back with 51 wins and a finals appearance. I predict Paul re-signs with the Suns on a 3-year, $100 million contract after winning the finals this year. After a disappointing, very injury-riddled 2 years in Utah, it looks like Mike is going to be on his way out and not returning like I predicted for Leonard and Paul. Surprisingly enough, he didn't fit well next to Donovan Mitchell, and they were undersized in addition. Mike is definitely out of his prime and on the decline, but he's still a solid defender and playmaker with the ability to add value to whatever team he's on when healthy. The team I'd sign with if I were Mike would be Dallas. I know it sounds like I dislike Luka, but I'm actually a super fan. I honestly believe he'll be the best player in the league, and I think that'll be real soon. I mentioned a few times that Luka is a ball-dominant point guard with a proven inability to play off-ball, and that was the main reason I thought Chris Paul wouldn't fit. The fact is that Dallas needs another playmaker on the court, and I think Mike is the player over Chris because he doesn't need the ball nearly as much as CP3, and he's more capable of playing off-ball consistently without feeling isolated within the offense. Conley can provide the secondary scoring and defense needed in the starting lineup and steer the ship when Luka goes to the bench. I'm much less confident in this prediction, but there's a glaring need for the Mavs if these playoffs were any indication. I predict Dallas signs Mike Conley to a 2-year, $35 million contract. DeMar DeRozan of the San Antonio Spurs is a weird case for me. He's an all-star type talent, but his skill set is so outdated his value is almost detrimental to a team. He's a mid-range monster with a decent handle, and he's still athletic enough to dunk on you. However, you can take the D out of his name and call him Emari Rosen because he plays so little of it. He's also a worse than poor three-point shooter and shot 25% last year on one attempt somehow in San Antonio. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if DeMar was forced to sign a 1-year, $10 million contract. I also wouldn't be surprised if a team signed DeMar to a 3-year, $100 million contract, given his ability to score 20 points a game. I'm not sure any of the teams on my list specifically need DeMar, but my gut says he gets pursued by San Antonio. If Kobe Popovich returns, they'll still need a legitimate scorer given their lack of free agent success over the years, and I don't see Pop returning for a rebuild. I can also see Charlotte going after him given how bad they are at picking talent in drafts and free agency not named LaMelo Ball or Kemba Walker. Timo and Michael Jordan is hell-bent on creating a somewhat respectable team, and I can see him throwing a ton of money at every half-big name in free agency, so expect no different than a potential massive overpay when it comes to DeMar DeRozan. Given that, though, I predict DeMar returns to comfortability and familiarity in San Antonio over losing in obscurity in Charlotte on a 2-year, $50 million prove-it deal with a team option in the final year. Kyle Lowry has really changed the perception of himself in recent years. Believe it or not, there was a time when many fans questioned his all-star status and wrote him off as a default player in the all-star game because of the lack of significant guard play in the East over the last decade. In the last 2 years, however, Kyle has seen a resurgence of sorts as a leader and a true name in the league. He won a championship in 2019 while finally playing well in the playoffs and led the Raptors to a top seed in a much-improved Eastern Conference even after Kawhi's departure. This year, people were even looking at him as a potential missing piece in the Lakers championship puzzle when the trade deadline came around. Kyle is a more than solid defender and playmaker with an effect on a team similar to Chris Paul. However, the Toronto Raptors appear to be ready to move on. While Kyle certainly has been the face of the franchise for the better part of the last decade, the team appears to be going in a younger route, building around Pascal Siakam. And while them holding on to Kyle at the trade deadline might suggest they intend to keep and re-sign him, I believe that means they have another idea. I believe the Raptors intend to sign and trade Kyle to recoup better returns for him while steering him towards a team more suited to winning now in an effort to repay him for his years of service. While I do think a sign and trade is the most likely scenario, I do think the Knicks are going to push hard for him. I think it's more than safe to say New York has him second on the free agency list behind Chris Paul, and when they inevitably strike out on Chris, like I think they will, I can see them overcompensating and offering Kyle a max or near max deal. Who knows? Maybe the Knicks go crazy and sign both DeMar and Kyle and run back 2015 Toronto. I predict Kyle Lowry signs with the New York Knicks on a 2-year max deal. I'm from Detroit, and I still live in Michigan. Pistons are my favorite team no matter how terrible they are or aren't, and I'm very passionate about them. I've watched a lot of Blake this season, and I gotta say, he looked pretty damn washed on my Pistons after making an All-NBA third team 2 years before. He looked unathletic and sluggish, and it was sad to watch how the injury sapped him of his skill, athleticism, and seemingly his will to play. Then he got bought out and signed with the Nets. It's amazing what a chance to really win and play with three superstar players like Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving can do for you. On the Nets, Blake was a revelation. He looked energetic, revitalized, and dare I say, athletic again. In less than half a season, the player that looked to be on his way to retirement has potentially played himself into another long-term deal worth good money and proving he's at least a high-level role player capable of contributing. At this stage of his career, Blake seems to be all about winning that ring. I don't think he's likely to go to a team not set up to do so or provide him a significant role as well. Of the teams I have listed, I say the Dallas Mavericks once again make the most sense given that they have the money to acquire him and Mike Conley if they wish, coupled with the fact that they have a need at the backup power forward and the center positions, especially with Kristaps Porzingis' injury history. I predict Blake signs in Dallas on a 2-year, $30 million deal. Again, I'm a Pistons fan from Detroit, so I may have been a little biased and optimistic with Blake. Maybe just a little, but when it comes to this guy, I got no problem admitting I am very biased. I have very little use for Andre Drummond. I've seen a lot of him and I know what he is. He's a black hole on offense with very little competency in the paint, with a penchant for missing point-blank layups and turnovers. He has terrible touch around the basket and is a Ben Wallace level free throw shooter. Respectfully to Ben Wallace, of course. He's an indifferent defender at best and an unplayable one at worst. He is, however, a monster rebounder and can occasionally swing the momentum of a game on an offensive glass. What that's worth is anyone's guess. After being bought out from the Cleveland Cavaliers like his former teammate in Detroit, Blake Griffin, he had an opportunity to prove he wasn't an outdated center with very little skill when he signed with the Lakers on their stretch playoff run. Instead, he exposed himself as a guy who can't defend and can't be relied on in the fourth quarter. Because of this, I suspect his free agent grade has dropped dramatically amongst many teams in the league, specifically the ones with championship aspirations. One team I can see once again coming to the rescue of an overhyped player on the fringes like him is Charlotte. They have a glaring hole at center and desperately need to revitalize the team and fan interest with a big signing in free agency. I predict Drummond signs a 4-year, $80 million deal in Charlotte and is never heard from again. I'm obviously very early with these takes, hence the name of this video, but I wanted to take some shots in the dark and take a stab at how I think things will shake out this year. It'll certainly be interesting to see, especially to see how well my opinion here ages. Yo, anybody notice how the entire Pistons starting lineup from 2018 was in the playoffs? No? I'm tripping? Right, by the way? Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, J. Cole, Blake, Andre Drummond, no? Congrats to the Pistons, man. We finally made it. Hall of Fame.
Hey.